Shadow Warrior 3 was developed and published by Flying Wild Hog, and is the third and presumably the final entry in the Shadow Warrior series. And coming off of Shadow Warrior 2, which was one of my favorite games from last generation, and one of the strongest first-person shooter games, one of the only first-person shooter games that I felt was worth a damn last generation, I had a lot of expectations going into Shadow Warrior 3. However, the game, as it stands now, is basically a massive disappointment, and in no way lives up to what Shadow Warrior 2 did. And while the gameplay, remains consistent between both games, regrettably, when you compare both games together, Shadow Warrior 3 just in no way lives up to Shadow Warrior 2 whatsoever. So going straight into the cons here, because I really don't have anything positive to say about this game, other than, yeah, it has good shooting mechanics that feel very responsive, and some of the weapons are fun to use, but there's not much else here that's enjoyable as a whole. Getting into it, the game is rather short-lived, clocking in at between 7 to 10 hours in length on normal difficulty. And to be honest, I beat this game in around 7 hours and 30 minutes. It's really not that long at all. The length, while not a problem within of itself, the game gives the player no reason to go back through the experience again. There is no New Game Plus like there was with Shadow Warrior 2, and there is no chapter select either, with the player being hardlocked to the final boss after the end credits have finished rolling. Combat in this game is fast and fluid, but repetitive. There is a simple method for dealing with every enemy in the game with little to no experimentation. This is due in part to the dumbed-down customization system from the second game that's been nearly excised in its entirety with the third installment. Seriously, what they did with the customization system in Shadow Warrior 3 is just... I really don't understand exactly what they were going for, because the customization system is almost non-existent in this game when you compare it to the customization system that was in Shadow Warrior 2. Again, I'm not really sure what the objective was at Flying Wild Hog when they got together and started concepting what this game was going to be. Especially when you look at what they did with Shadow Warrior 2. It really just doesn't make any sense. Many of the enemies are rather annoying to deal with. Most of them are glorified damage sponges that deal more than double the amount of damage that the player is able to deal in return. This forces an approach to the combat system that's rather too straightforward, involving the use of heavy weapons constantly, with each combat encounter throughout the entire runtime. Going back to the customization system, in Shadow Warrior 2, the player was able to add different weapon perks with a variety of unique effects to the weapons in their inventory. While that game was loot heavy, it was in good taste. All of that is but gone in Shadow Warrior 3, in which most of the customization has been limited to just 3 upgrades per weapon, and the perks that go along with them being predetermined takes away player choice in how they want to approach the combat system. This is a blatant downgrade with the customization system, which also takes away what was unique to Shadow Warrior, with the third game feeling too much like a clone of Doom. Story-wise, there's not much of a story here, and what's there is very uninteresting. The character Lo Wang has returned and has somehow accidentally summoned a great dragon that's a world killer. He has a limited amount of time to find and kill this dragon before it destroys everything. It's a very simple and narrow plot that plays out just as one would expect. Now, while I wasn't expecting a fantastic story by any means, what really aggravated me was the character Lo Wang himself along with the Hoji character. Both are presented through most or all of the experience, and both are very annoying. Hoji in particular has some of the worst voice acting I've heard since, well, the last major game I played with Elden Ring.
It's a G cannon, so we can blast that filthy reptile out of the sky. You're in for quite a ride, brother. Just follow my lead.
Lo Wang, on the other hand, is annoying because he's clearly a defined Asian stereotype. With the slurred Asian accent and especially the references, this game is filled with numerous pop culture references, including references to Kangaroo Jack, Die Hard, Fast and Furious, and more. However, unlike a game such as Persona 5, for example, which also had numerous pop culture references, the references here in Shadow Warrior 3 aren't clever. Lo Wang just says random shit at random times throughout the game that don't have anything to do with what the player is actually doing.
Now this is what I call a PowerPoint presentation. I point,
You die. Ah.
By contrast, in Persona 5, if you go to the movie theater and watch a movie, there would be references to the Avengers or the Dark Knight trilogy.
Good morning, Mr. Snunt. This is your mission, should you choose to accept it. You must infiltrate your own home without a proper key. Find the key and enter within 90 minutes, or forfeit ownership of all your possessions in your room. Good luck.
Okay, calm down. They won't see me if I climb over the outer wall.
Let's head back.
If you rent a movie, there would be references to a popular American TV show, etc.
What would you like?
Here we see some references to Desperate Housewives, House MD, Prison Break, The Walking Dead, Beverly Hills 90210, MacGyver, The X-Files, Ugly Betty. So the game is self-aware of what it's doing, but it's doing it in a very smart way. And then actually being able to go home in this game and actually watch one of the episodes, even if you actually don't see any of the footage itself, because the player is more than likely already aware of what these shows are and have likely seen an episode or two. It does help the game feel more realistic, despite the fact that it's an animated game. Shadow Warrior 3 isn't smart with its references by comparison, so they just feel forced by comparison. All in all, Shadow Warrior 3 is a decent game to a certain extent, but it's one that has no staying power or any true longevity at any given point for the length of its duration. It's an astounding disappointment compared to the second game. It seems that either Flying Wild Hog took the wrong criticism from the second game and tried to correct said criticism with this game, or simply their vision for the third game just didn't line up with anything they'd done with the second. Either way, I've already moved on to other things and have already quickly forgotten about this entirely.